Today's topic is not very fun, so Gutsy is going to help me out.
Look into my eyes and show me adventures I haven't seen. Taking all the life, it hits the spot. Walking on fantasy. So take me, baby, take me to a state of mind.
What's up, guys? I'm Kevin Nahai. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, The Other Side. And on today's episode, I am going to be discussing my experience living with a chronic disease. I don't talk about this a lot. It is extremely personal, and the details are rather gory and indelicate. But this is something that I've been dealing with for a long time, for about 7 years. And I feel that I need to share my personal truth. Before I begin, I just want to say, I don't want this to sound like I'm complaining. I don't believe in complaining. And I really don't want it to come across as like, oh, woe is me, and this is my sob story or anything like that. But I do want to be very honest about what I've gone through. And of course, at the end, there will be a silver lining to all of this. And I will discuss all of the things that I've learned from this. And I hope it resonates and it's helpful to you. Alrighty. So back in October of 2011, I was diagnosed with 2 autoimmune disorders. One is called Crohn's disease, and the other is called ulcerative colitis. Both are diseases of the stomach. Both are excruciatingly painful, and both come with a host of symptoms that are awful to deal with. Over the past 7 years, I have been hospitalized more times than I can count. I've taken every medication under the sun. I have been to every expert in this field that you can find anywhere. I've tried every single diet. I've made drastic changes to my lifestyle. And some things have worked for a short period of time. Other things have completely floundered. And other things have actually made my symptoms worse. So it's been a rough road. And it's not only the physical symptoms that are awful, which, just to paint a little mental picture for you, if you have a flare-up of Crohn's or colitis, some of the things that you can expect are absolutely awful pain in all of your joints, your knees, your elbows, your lower back, profuse bleeding when you use the restroom. And I mean bleeding like black, viscous, tar blood, pints of it, like bleeding to the point where you're anemic and your iron levels are in the toilet. And we're talking like black blood, which to see that come out of you is terrifying. You can't eat anything. You lose tons of weight extremely quickly. And I talked about that in my eating disorder video. I'll put the link below. I mean, I lost like 60 pounds in the first 11 months that I had this disorder. And the list goes on and on. If you have a flare-up of your symptoms, you can expect to be bedridden for anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. Like literally, you are in so much pain and you have to be within 5 feet of a restroom at all times that you can't do anything. You can't go anywhere except to see the doctor to have some invasive procedure done. And it's just tormenting. But the emotional symptoms, the emotional backlash and trauma associated with this disease are really just as bad, if not worse in some ways. I remember I was 18 or 19 years old, and imagine being a kid in your first month of college, and you're just trying to live a normal life. Like you just moved away, you left your family, you left your high school friends, you're in some shitty dorm, like you just want to get acclimated to college, and you're sitting in a doctor's office. He has just stuck a tube all the way up your ass and another tube all the way down your throat and made cuts in your stomach, and he's already invaded the shit out of you. And then he tells you, you have a disease that you are going to have for the rest of your life, and it is impossible to cure it. If someone told you that tomorrow, how would you feel? Granted, he said, yeah, there are ways to manage this disease, and you can find a way to have a normal life, and your symptoms can go into remission. But just imagine, the fear and the terror that went through my body, head to toe, when I got that news, I'll never forget it. And then over the course of the past 7 years, it's been really difficult emotionally because this disease is so isolating. Even though you have family and friends who are there for you, and even though you have medical support and, whatever, it's very difficult to explain to employers, to friends, to a guy or girl that you might be dating, to your teachers. It's very hard to explain why you didn't show up to that event, why you've taken so many sick days, why you didn't come to class. Every single time to have to explain, to have to provide medical records, to pretend not to be embarrassed or just to withhold the information because you are embarrassed. That is exhausting, and you're already just trying to make it through the physical symptoms. And now you have to explain your story to people, and now you got to make excuses, and you feel alone because nobody gets it. Emotionally, it's traumatic, and it's awful. And I'm not going to sit here and say that, this disease has brought me so much wisdom and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. That's BS. If I could learn the lessons I've learned in life any other way than having Crohn's and colitis, I would. But this is the hand that I've been dealt in life, and I take full responsibility for it, and I take full accountability for it. And I finally accepted it. And I finally made use of the lessons that I've learned so that it's not for naught. I could write a 500-page book on all of the lessons I've learned over the past 7 years, but this is already a longer video. And to spare you the time, I've distilled it down into the 4 most important things that I've learned. The first thing is something that I call the mind-body connection. And what that means specifically is the relationship between your emotional state, your stress and anxiety, your happiness, right, and your physical state or your physical symptoms. So this is something that Eastern doctors and Eastern cultures and traditions have been practicing and preaching forever. But for some reason in the West, we don't understand this. In the West, doctors are experts in sickness, but they are not experts in health. And as we know, health is not merely the absence of sickness. Health is the amalgamation of a whole host of things, most importantly of which is your emotional health, your levels of stress and anxiety, how fulfilled you are, how happy you are. And I guarantee you, if you wake up one day with a really bad cold, think to yourself, what happened the 3 days before I got this cold? You will discover that you were stressed or upset about something, and that manifested in your body, giving you the message that you need to address your emotional health. If you break out in acne one day, it's the same thing. What happened the 3 days prior? If you can't come up with something that happened that was emotionally taxing, you're not thinking hard enough. It's not just about autoimmune disorders. However, the very nature of autoimmune disorders is that all of your symptoms are exacerbated by stress. And it is insane to me that I've never had one doctor ask me, how stressed out are you? What are you doing to alleviate your sadness or your anxiety? How is your emotional state? If you can figure out the answer to that, then it becomes so much easier to navigate your physical symptoms because the two things are causal. They're not correlated. It is a causal relationship between them. And I have witnessed evidence for this every day for as long as I have had this disease. All right. The second thing that I've learned is what it really means to be compassionate. Compassion is an all or nothing game. You can't be compassionate to the plight of some people and not to the plight of others. So the concept of like first world problems, I hate that. Just because you are going through a really bad divorce or breakup, right, doesn't mean that that problem is irrelevant. Just because somebody in the third world is starving like a little kid in Africa or whatever, that doesn't mean that what you're dealing with in the first world has no value, right? You have to be compassionate to the plight of somebody who has stage 4 liver cancer, and you also have to be compassionate to the plight of somebody who's dealing with a really, really bad cold. Yeah, the two things are not the same in degree, but in order to have compassion, you have to have compassion for all, no matter where they are in the world, no matter what they're dealing with. 99% of people are dealing with something difficult that you have no idea about, so just never miss an opportunity to be kind. That is a lesson that I have learned to the nth degree and that I really try to practice. Third lesson is gratitude and the importance of gratitude in not only making me a happier person, but also in helping my physical symptoms, right? And in making this disease easier to deal with. I remember one time I was about to have a colonoscopy, and the prep for a colonoscopy is just hell. It just makes you feel like the absolute worst, like walking zombie on earth of sickness and death. It's awful. And my sister said to me, you know, you never complain. Like, I'm so proud of you. You never complain. And I remember in my interview to get into graduate school, I wrote my essay on living with Crohn's and colitis. And the guy who interviewed me read over my essay, and the first thing he asked me was, man, I can't believe like you've been through all of this and you've still accomplished everything you have and you don't complain. And how are you still here? And the answer to both that guy and my sister is gratitude. Every single morning that I wake up and I'm not sick, I take a moment and I thank the universe that I can get up and just walk to my car and just like, I don't have to be in the hospital today. Like, I just express gratitude for that. Every single morning that I wake up and I do have symptoms and I am sick, I take a moment and I express gratitude. I thank the universe that I have friends and family who are there to support me, that I have the medical staff on my team, people who can help me, right? That I have health insurance, whatever it may be. Expressing gratitude and not complaining is huge. Gratitude is not about having what you want. It is about wanting what you have, appreciating what you have. And I want to give a personal shout out to my gratitude coach. Her name is Asal, and she has an amazing company. I'll put her link in the description below. The fourth lesson is the true nature of optimism, right? What does it really mean to be optimistic? What does it really mean to believe that things will be better when you don't have evidence that things will be better? I remember one time I was having lunch with my brother, and he said, how are you always so positive? Like, how are you always so idealistic? How do you always have the faith that everything is going to work out and you're always so forward looking? And I told him, because look, man, being optimistic is just a game of what you choose to put in your personal foreground, right? So I have a friend, Alexandra, who once told me that wherever you put your attention, whatever you choose to put your attention on is what will grow. So if you choose to put your attention on the things that are good, the things that are wonderful and abundant and beautiful, all of those things grow. If I choose to put my attention on the fact that I have a chronic disease that is awful and that I'm always getting sick and blah, 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 then that festers like in a little petri dish, and it grows and it grows until that issue becomes so unmanageable that I feel like my life is not even worth living, right? So Optimism is not about deluding yourself. It's not about being naive and pretending that everything is peachy all the time. It's not. It's about acknowledging that there are difficult things that you have to deal with, but leaving that in the background, right? In the foreground, in the thing that is in front of you, that is in the front of your mind, that you focus on, that you visualize, that you envision all day long, all of that has to be positivity. Positivity, positivity. It doesn't mean that you don't acknowledge the negative and difficult things. You do acknowledge them, right? But you don't focus on them. You focus on the positive no matter how bad things are. So please start practicing that. Use me as an example. If you are in a bad situation, right? Think, Kevin got through some horrible things. I can get through some horrible things too. And the way is going to be by examining the mind-body connection, by being compassionate towards the plight of others, because it really does make you feel better, by practicing gratitude every single day, and by choosing to be optimistic. Challenge yourself. Challenge yourself to think only positive, loving, encouraging, optimistic thoughts all day long. And you will see that your landscape and the nature of your problems changes overnight. I promise you. I implore you. Please, as always, like and comment and subscribe. Reach out to me if you want to talk more about this. Love you guys. Thank you for listening.